One way you could start a piece of writing or start a speech if you wanted to put your audience at a high risk of completely tuning out is to start by using as your hook a dictionary definition.
Webster's dictionary defines wetting as the fusing of two metals with a hot torch.
Just going to the dictionary definition of your subject is not a very compelling way to start anything, and it actually sounds sort of lazy. You may not be lazy, but it makes you sound lazy. Anyone can go to the dictionary or dictionary.com to define something, and typically your audience won't need your help to know that they can do this. It's also not a great idea because it's often unhelpful. Take the definition of poetry, for example. And yes, I do understand that I am starting this video with a critique of dictionary definitions, then immediately going to a dictionary definition, but just bear with me, I'm making a point. When you try to define poetry using the dictionary or looking up the definition, you'll probably find something like this: a piece of writing in which the expression of feelings or ideas is given intensity by particular attention to diction, sometimes involving rhyme, rhythm, or imagery. Okay, fine, that might seem like a perfectly fine definition, but when you deconstruct it, couldn't a definition like this apply to almost any type of writing? I mean, what type of writing could it not apply to? It's certainly not only conventional poems that give attention to rhythm and imagery. This definition can be applied to lyrics or scripts or speeches, or even prose and nonfiction writing. It says that it only has to rhyme sometimes, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a piece of writing outside of an instruction manual for a lawnmower that doesn't try to evoke emotion. Well, no, actually, lawnmower instruction manuals will have like warning signs, you know, like those danger warning things. So yes, they do try to evoke feelings. They try to make you feel like you're in danger. But can everything that goes under that definition actually be considered poetry? The dictionary definition does us no good here, since the definition seems to be so broad. According to it, everything is poetry. But if we really want to understand poems, we can't be relativistic with our definition. You might think that you might just know poetry when you see it, but that's actually quite limiting because there might be writing out there you can look at as poetry that you may be missing. Are song lyrics poetry, for instance? In some cases, maybe. And in some, maybe not.
So gangsta, I'm so thug, y'all know.
Indeed, it's subjective in a way, and in this case, I think subjectivity serves our purposes. You all come from different experiences, and what strikes you as imaginative and what evokes strong emotions in you will be different from the rest of us. But there may be a way to help you understand how to identify poetry better when you see it, not because of what it looks like, but because of what it does for all of us as readers. Poetry compels you to discover a meaning. But unlike a story or an instruction manual, which have guidelines for how to read them and how to interpret the meaning, poetry is like trying to get from point A to point B without a map. There is a meaning, but discovering it is like trying to make your way through a dense forest without a clear-cut path. This is called ambiguity. It's the idea that a piece can be interpreted in many different ways. When a piece of writing is ambiguous, when you have to go through the woods without a path or a map, it presents two opportunities for the reader. You can either get frustrated or impatient with the process. You can easily get annoyed that the language, structure, and references can sometimes seem like they're placed there to make interpretation more difficult. Or your other option with interacting with poems is to stop and notice the trees, to keep with the forest analogy. You can choose and stop to pay attention to the beauty of what surrounds you in the poem. Deeply consider why it includes certain words or phrases, and come out of this forest more appreciative of the experience. You might trip over a root every now and then, but experiences that are worth having don't always come easily. The purpose of studying poetry is to give you strategies for navigating the woods, so that over time you will become more and more adept at understanding how to read a poem. Again, what you consider poetry will ultimately be subject to your experience and interpretations, but I would implore you to consider ambiguity as a key component of identifying it when it appears to you. And while poems will certainly involve beautiful imagery and deep introspection, remember that it is less about how you can get out of the forest, but more what you can notice in the trees.